phase and frequency by feedback of current analysis circuit.
Can you repeat it again? Please.
He is trying to control Tesla coil frequency and current consumption and phase with feedback circuit. So these oscillations are being in small phase lock with receiving circuit, and the current and voltage needed is also controlled by this means.
The thing is that free oscillations, they are independent. That's why I have a problem with the term free oscillations.
But the primary coil itself is having capacitor across, so there is free oscillations as well, and changing.
No. The free oscillation means the oscillation in resonance. That would be the oscillation in certain resonance. Do you agree with that?
That's correct. But the amplitude and consumed current still needs to be controlled.
That I understand perfectly. What I have a problem is with the righteousness of the term as the swobodne колебания, free oscillations. There is no free oscillations. There is a cause that creates an oscillation. The oscillations that are there are dependent from the primary coil. Do you agree with that?
If you influence the primary coil, these oscillations are damping it, peaking it, or alter it.
Right. But then...
This is what he is doing.
Right. But the thing is that there would be no free oscillation in the secondary of the Tesla coil by itself, independent from the primary at all. So the term free oscillation should not be used, right or wrong?
It's quite not the right point in his case. But the meaning of Tesla coil here is for providing electrostatic field and source of electrons.
That's right.
So he is taking these electrons on the receiving coil and sucking it into the wire.
That's right. But then,
So
but then, yeah, but
synchronized between transmitter and receiver on phase lock, on needed amplitude, on control of reaction, on all aspects of measuring.
Okay. But again, free oscillation in respect to what?
The secondary itself is doing free oscillations in any way. The primary is controlled.
See, the whole concept of resonance in resonance is that we keep one...
We have phase lock, so which is one resonance.
Right.
And they have, in the left side, we have Tesla coil, which is doing voltage resonance.
Right.
In the right hand, we have current resonance.
Right.
And resonance in resonance, this means these two needs to be synchronized to maximize effect.
That I understand perfectly. That I have no problem with it, although physics would have a problem with it. The whole concept of resonance is that we killing two cows at the same time. We're getting the current and we're getting the voltage, which in physics, the higher the voltage, the lower the current. The higher the current, the lower the voltage.
At the moment, we got two power sources which are synchronizing. One power source is current, which is in the right hand, and another voltage sources. It's basically just step up voltage to provide electrostatic field with help of Tesla coil, which is doing that perfect.
Right.
Now,
okay.
To have these oscillations in proper timing and proper phase and proper frequency, he is trying to enable or disable circuit on proper alignment. So which means when you have disconnection of, for example, when spark gap fires in primitive way, you are making spike. Now he's making these spikes with electronics, so he can control freely when he's
right.
And now to have phase lock, he actually providing these spikes on correct time and also controlling current, which allows him to have magnitude of voltage coming out.
Right. Well, the whole concept is that we have a freedom of choosing whether we create an impulse that would be given right before the top of an of the carrier frequency, not on the top of it like Akula says. Either we do it electronic way or we doing it using the spark. But anyhow, anyway, it would work. My question would be is, if we exclude for the moment that we're not using electronic to create a square wave signal, but we use the spark gap, wouldn't that be kind of similar to Tariel Capenaz's device?
Tariel Capenaz is using quite a different way. And I sent you actually audio file version. You should actually has that information in
Right.
full.
Right. Okay. Now, I'm gonna try to include that, what you say in the video, because I see extreme value in it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, fine. Well, okay, so are you gonna be sleeping right? What time is it right now?
3 a.m.
3:15. Unbelievable. Actually,
there is actually a scientific conference going on second day of free in America, and I'm listening to that on live.
on live. Could you send me the link?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Just give me a second.
Right, and also my wife says hello to you, because among few friends that I have, she respects you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, so that was prior to that translation. So let's go to the translation.
Tesla. То есть блок анализа вот этот получилось запустить от 1 МГц до 2. То есть система, которая будет работать.
I was able to make that block to work from 1 megahertz to 2 megahertz. Now you remember we had discussion on overunity.com with Arunas, where you have a carrier frequency that is a low frequency and a modulating frequency that is a very, very high one. That was the whole concept of the Lithuanian experiment. And we assigned to that nuclear magnetic resonance. But since we're trying to translate that field, let's go further.
На частоте от 1 до 2 МГц.
We use the frequency from 1 to 2 megahertz.
Вот это сами сигналы на транзисторы, которые будут модулировать.
And those are the signals for the transistors that will be used for modulation.
Сейчас частота модуляции, ну, согласно этому расчету, где-то будет от 70 до 90 кГц. Это
The frequency of modulation right now is from 70 to 90 kilohertz.
частота модуляции. То есть вот у нас сейчас на блок загнано. Вот мы имеем сигналы.
And that's the signal that is coming out of it.
Главное – это формирование их под свободные колебания уже в катушке. То есть
And what is the most important is properly forming those impulses for free oscillations. And that was the part of the conversation that I have had with Arunas. Brilliant guy, brilliant brain. Guys, listen to him more. He's a young fellow, absolutely outstanding. Let's go further.
начало сигнала и конец. То есть вот этот фронт, вот начало, вот он, его подъем, он точно соответствует свободным колебаниям.
The front of the signal, which would be the raising edge of the signal, he calls that is right in the regime or parameters of free oscillations. I'm trying to keep to his original wording, so we have a rising edge and a falling edge, or front edge, whatever.
Равным 1,6 МГц.
And that's the frequency of 1.6 megahertz. I recall 1.6, 1.2 megahertz from Lithuanian experiment.
Они вот они. То есть вот эти мелкие, которые мы здесь вот видим, это и есть свободное колебание.
That's the short decaying part of the signal that is in left hand upper corner. He calls free oscillations.
А начало фронта и конец, то есть этот блок четко формирует. Ну, еще раз скажу, у него получается работать, то есть свободно от одного, то есть отслеживать вот эти свободные колебания и формировать под них импульсы с точным временем.
He's able to pick those short bursts of the signal in the front of the square signal edge on the left hand side, form them
От 1 до 2 МГц.
from 1 to 2 megahertz.
Коридор авторегулировки очень большой получается.
And the region of tuning, it's pretty wide. Oh, yeah.
Сейчас покажу. То есть, если мы
And I'm going to demonstrate it.
Свободно на 50 килогерц.
We have a 50 kilohertz in here.
Фронты четко.
And
Нарушение четко.
And then we have the decaying signal very strong, and the frequency is, the carrier frequency is standing.
Именно в тот сигнал, в тот момент времени и с той протяженностью, четко соответствующий ядерному магнитному резонансу.
Well, he says that he shows that the modulating signal, he shows the left-hand side of the signal, which is sort of decaying part of the top of the raising edge. And then he shows the carrier on the right-hand side on the oscilloscope. And he says, well, everything is pretty much stable. And that is exactly the nuclear magnetic resonance that we're having here in the wire. So he says that the nuclear magnetic resonance is affecting the wire, the copper wire.
По сути дела, вот этот фронт времени, вот, то есть вот этот фронт, вот тут он четко стоит, как меандр. На самом деле он имеет форму изгибания. И вот эта форма изгибания.
The raising edge, or the front edge, is pretty much stable, and it looks like pretty much straight. But in the result, it's not straight. It bends up, but we don't see that on that impulse right near the very top.
Она соответствует ядерно-магнитному резонансу.
And that is exactly equal to the parameters for nuclear magnetic resonance.
Вот этому времени.
And this is the time that I'm showing in here. So he shows the bottom of the signal and the top of the signal, which is the carrier frequency. And he says this is from the bottom to the top, where we're getting nuclear magnetic resonance. Well, based on what we agreed with the Arunas, you actually should load the peaks or in form of the something like that. That would be like a machine gun starting from 0 to the very top of an impulse. I'm gonna show it from here. Oh boy, from the very bottom. I'm gonna go to back. Okay, so from here to over there. From 0 to very top, right before the top, 3% before the top. That's where you put in the impulse, and the impulses should look like very high peaks, plenty of them. And if we have a frequency of 50 Hertz of the carrier, the frequency of modulating could be 1.6 megahertz. But let's go further. Don't confuse what I'm commenting and what he's saying.
Так что, ребят, все нормально.
So it looks like everything is okay.
Двигаемся дальше.
Everything is working.
То есть вот это самое главное. То есть
And we're
если
going further.
нарушить вот это время, которое не будет соответствовать ядерно-магнитному резонансу в проводнике.
If we disturb that time on the oscilloscope, I'm gonna go there. Okay, so the time from here to over there, if we disturb that time, which will not
Вот это самое главное. То есть если нарушить вот это время, которое не будет соответствовать
correspond with the time between lower peak and a upper peak, which I have a problem with it because it should be from 0 to very top of the peak. And that should be in results nuclear magnetic resonance in the wire. We're not gonna have that effect, and we're not gonna get nuclear magnetic resonance. So what is important is the very top of the left-hand side of the square wave signal and very top of the right-hand side of the square wave signal. So raising edge and falling edge. I'm gonna show it one more time. Now I put from 50, I've changed from 50 kilohertz to 100 kilohertz. Now you see a pretty much stable down there. And the timing is pretty much constant. The front of the signal is pretty much straight. But it became a little bit smaller. And we see pretty much clear nuclear magnetic resonance in the wire. That's his comment. Don't judge me for it. And that's how it should be. Well, guys, for nuclear magnetic resonance, we have at least two coils at 90 degrees, one next to the other. We know definitely that Akula have reached the effect. So he built the device. It's not a hoax, not a joke. The device worked. And the device was confirmed by Tiger. So I spoke to Akula, I spoke to Tiger. And I know this is not a joke. It is working. Nuclear magnetic resonance in Lithuania experiment was assigned to the effect in ferrite. Ferrite was from Russian Bubin TV, and based on my observation, it should contain cobalt. Cobalt is also part of the Coleman experiment that I'm doing from 1956. For me, the form is not important. We can make a form of the powder or compacting the powder in any possible way. We can wind the wire, so we can use the antennas, and that's what called mandate. My understanding is that Akula is not trying to give us all of the information for us to repeat that, because if he was to do that, he would give us an instruction and a schematic to follow, like a young lady trying to assemble the bookshelf from Home Depot or from IKEA. But he's trying to attract people, and he's trying to explain that this device works. It's not a hoax. That will possibly help him out to get investors. Is it anything wrong with that? No, it is not. But this is not my cup of tea. This is his. Is he entitled to make money of it? Of course he is. So I'm not putting pressure on him. I'm not criticizing him. Thank you, Akula, for giving us this video and giving us this material. It is only that I state that he's never going to get a patent. Tariel Capenadze filed in 2008 for the patent and never got the patent, as well as few others. And those guys from South America right now, Barracuda guys, I call them Barracuda, they're not going to get patent. They have just a patent application. It's not going to work. The only way for you guys to understand that it's going to work is post it to the internet if you have such a device with a full instruction. This is 6.8 billion people in the planet Earth, and the buyer is every person walking on the street. So if you make 1,000 devices per day, which is possible to make, it doesn't have to be that complicated, and your cost per device is $30 American. You sell it easy for $1,000 with no problem. You can try to sell it for $2,000, but the buyer is everybody. At the end of the day, you have $1 million, and tomorrow is another day. So my question to you is, how much money is enough? How much money is suitable, guys? Should you answer yourself? One thing that we're fighting with is the temptation of every inventor to cash out the idea. Well, is it wrong? In terms of free energy, it's wrong. And it's wrong just because of the one single fact. The investor will ask the question. If I give you X amount of money, million, 10 million, whatever you want, how can you stop other people for repeating the first device that I have made and sold based on your approval, and they will pay no money to you and no money to me? And then investors say, I cannot do it. So the investor says, you're not going to get the money. Так что, товарищи, and now a few words to people Russian and Polish speaking. So for those of you who are already bored and tired with all of that subject, thank you very much. Товарищ, правда такая, что любой покупатель, который покажется, это будет инвестор. Он спросит Акулу или любого чувака, который имеет это устройство, какой гарантии ты мне даешь на это, что если я тебе дам любую сумму денег, другие не будут это копировать без разрешения. Они не будут платить ни тебе, ни мне. И в таком случае инвентор, изобретатель говорит, ну я не могу дать такой гарантии. В таком случае инвестор говорит, так и ты не получишь денег. Просто. Вот и так и будет. Тарель Капенадзе помрет, скорее всего, со своим секретом на душе. Если не формирует, то вылезет. А почему он должен вылезть? Ребята, кончается год 2013, начинается 14 уровень воспитания в этой точке очень огромный. Практически дотронуться, и у нас устройство есть. Андреа Росси сделал устройство похоже на Колмана, у него уже есть $500 миллиарда евро от инвесторов. И он пытается раскрутить во Флориде эту мануфактуру, 300 тысяч устройств ежегодно, и продавать их. В таком случае всем станет обидно. Может быть, я до сих пор смогу доделать Колман. Я это отдам. Все вылезут как крыши. Просто как крысы. Кто-то делает бабки, они сидят и ничего не делают. Вот. Я так думаю, около 50 человек в мире имеет доработанное устройство и просто его держат. А когда все вылезут, начинается перемена. Вот так. Большое спасибо вам. Я, конечно, хотел бы дождаться момента, в котором американцам крыша поезда перегруза, а то бензин и электричество уже им не платят. И ихняя гилда разорилась. Вот так. Ну, это просто так. Мне все равно по барабану. Так, parę słów po polsku. Praktycznie, że wyobrazić sobie pierwszą i drugą cewkę Tesli. Pierwszy obwód posiada dołączony kondensator. Cała zasada polega na tym, że mamy dwa sygnały od dwóch generatorów. Jeden generator cały czas trzyma rezonans. Nieważne co, trzyma rezonans. A drugi generator chce wejść w rezonans. Częstotliwość, gdybyśmy mogli sobie wyobrazić nośnika fali nośnej, jest około 50 Hz, a częstotliwość modulująca jest około 1,6 MHz. Ale to może być różne. Piki prostokątne są podawane od 0 do najwyższej amplitudy sygnału. 3% przed samą najwyższą amplitudą sygnału. Zasada polega na tym, żeby uzyskać rezonans w rezonansie. Typowo, jeżeli mamy wysokie napięcie, mamy mały prąd i na odwrót. To, co my chcemy zrobić, chcemy uzyskać wysokie napięcie, wysoki prąd, czyli dużą moc impulsu, a ponieważ impuls jest bardzo krótki, więc zupełnie możliwe jest to uzyskać. I teraz staramy się, żeby w momencie, kiedy impuls zaczyna zdychać, czyli schodzić z góry w dół, my nie podajemy impulsów. I znowu to samo robimy, kiedy on zaczyna narastać. To tyle. Wydaje mi się, że rewolucja nastąpi albo do końca tego roku, albo w przyszłym roku. Wiedza już się tak ludzi wzmocniła w tej dziedzinie, że po prostu w momencie, kiedy Andrea Rossi wyjdzie ze swoim urządzeniem, gdzie on już ma $500 miliarda od inwestorów i rozkręca manufakturę we Florydzie, wszyscy inni jak szyry powidują. Około 50 ludzi na świecie ma urządzenie dorobione, pracujące. Ale to jest oczywiście moje zdanie. Nie mam do tego prawa jako obywatel amerykański. Prawo do swojego własnego zdania i wyrażania tego zdania. Dziękuję serdecznie. No dawaj.
На английском или русском хочешь?
На английском я буду записывать.
Хорошо. So I will make explain my standpoint of view, how I see old CPU, old tornadoes, and all related things going on. Let's start from simple nature thing, tornado itself. Basically, what it does, it concentrates energy into middle, and it just does everything in rotation fashion. It's all related to mathematical theories of Fibonacci numbers, Akula. Who are interested in math also should check on Rodin math, so Rodin coil. It's straight away as well. Now I'll just tell you historically how it got away. Basically, it starts all back in 50s last century, and John Searle started to work on this, and he made SEG. So some guys probably know about it, some guys not. It's just actually a mechanical way of approaching to make artificial magnetic tornado. Now, the second step is a magnetic rotating field is rotating in vortex fashion. It creates lots of energy around in a way of electricity. So the zero STG was creating lots of electricity, and also the combination of high voltage between center and it was creating all ionization ions, all these kinds of stuff. And also it was creating gravity effects. Now, the second step in history was Stephen Marks. His name is famous, very limited forms. There are lots of information, and one of his replications was AutoTPO, which is well known. And this guy did put some documents and basically tried just to reverse engineer Stephen Marks' TPO, but it came out in own way. Basically, what we were doing, we were trying to rotate particles in the ring. So the collector coil, which is 90 degrees to pulsing coils, was getting voltage. We were just in Mobius fashion, so it was like acceleration in a smaller ring going on, and we was trying different frequency sets to make these electrons move in a wire itself. The second part in history is happening actually over the last few years, and it's on Russian side. There are two guys in Russia I know basically personally in contacts, but they don't wish to go public, so I can only translate my understanding how they made it. One guy is basically in real stranded forums called Invention, which is Invention and he actually repeated about an experiment and made the light bulb for 300 watts to get fully lit without any consumption at all. Now, the second guy who was more closely actually to vortex mass and understanding how vortices work, he just made basically almost one-to-one replica of Stephen Marks CPU itself. What he did basically, he just made same configuration like you have so very wide, let's wide of let's say maybe 400 strands on 21 centimeters diameter or 20, I don't remember now exactly. And actually he wound some tons on it. Then he made insulation coating on top of that for high voltage. Then he did put aluminum foil around that to form capacitor, but it actually didn't short it, so it was lit. Just to make sure it was not shorted coil. And on top of that, for a high isolation, he actually mounted various of controlling coils around the ring itself. Now, what happens when you actually, the good analogy is when back to Tesla times, when he'd say that example, when you have a nozzle full of water and it's connected in itself and is full of water, and now you want to move water around the ring. What you are doing, you're squeezing one place in one hand, Now, after this, you're starting to squeeze the second hand right after it, and when you are in the middle of process, you start to release in first hand. The water inside of the ring starts to move. Same principles applied in this version of the pool. So basically, you are getting pulses. The second pulse goes not right after first pulse, but there's intersection section. So that is basically utilizing vacuum wave for second pulse and making field to rotate in one direction. Additional features of the control coil is that winding itself like in Blitzkalning PMH, and Blitzkalning was one of these brilliant guys who had actually advanced knowledge back in 30s of last century, and nobody knows his secrets how to build it and how he did build his coral castle. But at least there was some books about magnetism after he did his death. And basically he explains about pulsed magnetic coils which act as electromagnets, but only the main difference is the metals is still stuck until battery source is removed. I recommend just to read about it and try to do this experience if you didn't, so you will then understand how magnetic lensing effect is going on single point and edges of the coil. So these coils was on TPU in another Russian guy version, and basically he was pulsing them in fashion as I explained before, water in house, but and just this nose house of full of water. Now what happens is he actually gives static field, electrostatic field that he can collector and this aluminum foil, so effectively making capacitor, but also then this high electron voltage field going on with, let's say from, it's differs basically by different place on Earth, because it effectively, it's just my personal opinion, it's zero ley lines, so they intercept less voltage is needed. So in some places it's 9 kilovolts, some places are 15 kilowatts, maybe even 20 kilowatts going on, just to trigger reaction. And also then these pulsars are going around the ring. He's trying to move particles around the ring, and effectively he is making particle accelerator in TPU itself. Now what happens, basically each strand of its wire on its outer space keeps getting this static field and getting actually free electrons out of metal itself, and magnetic field is directing them. So it's basically current amplification to very high power. This, for example, small TPU was powered from 2 kilowatts, 4 kilowatts, even 8 kilowatts of loads in a resistive way, and also the output of this coil, that's the collector coil of TPU, is almost pulsed DC. It's just mostly DC, but it's like not going to the zero, but to some point in the middle somewhere and going up on the ring. So it's possible to rectify that and put inverter over and have normal 50 Hz AC output. Now the thing is, it's very tricky to make this stuff going on, because you need to be very careful to meet conditions under which this phenomenon is triggered. So when you have particles start moving, and this indicator is just to put compass in the middle of toroid. So when the needle starts to turn around, it's actually should indicate the moving fields and moving particles as well. And it's actually in the same fashion as cylinders had. So when it's accelerating, this guy said the acceleration he had, the particles in this ring was moving 9 kilometers per second. Can you imagine the speeds? It's very high speed here. So what makes current This is a big question to physicists, but what makes current is amount of particles moving around a wire, over wire, and also the speed on which they move. So either you add particles or just make it move faster. And if you add particles and move faster, you get tremendous power. Now another thing is why relate to zero and SEG at the same thing. So basically, if you accelerate that to very high speed, what happens next? You get lots of statics, probably. My assumption is like in SEG, and also this guy said when it accelerates, it changes mass. So which means you can make anti-gravity straight out of this.
Okay.
Hopefully my explanation wasn't too complicated and didn't raise too much, just strange questions, but this is nature, how it's done. You actually are making particle accelerator. With the help of that, you're accelerating electrons to very high speeds. And you're getting tremendous amount of current.
The only
One thing I didn't mention is to make it running, you have to run your starting current from the collector over right to the beginning of control coils as plus, for example. So you make weak magnetic field on collector, and you make strong magnetic fields on control coils, and also you have electrostatic component that you used to.
That I understand. The only thing is that we didn't include any theory in it. We just put our understanding of that phenomenon. We gave a little bit of broad history of whatever the progress was. What I would like to ask you for is, remember the Lithuania experiment, we assigned nuclear magnetic resonance that was affecting structure of the ferrite. And right, and I found a connection with it, assigning ferrite from yolk from Russian TV rubin that possibly will have a cobalt in it, which then make it similar to Coleman device. But now
additional relationships, basically what we are doing, we are almost making NMR in copper in this case. So you need to be careful when this thing is running. It creates a rotating magnetic field, which is actually harmful because it's on high speed. So
that's what I have a problem with, is because the Akula tends to explain the phenomena that are happening there based on nuclear magnetic resonance on copper, and I have a problem with that. I'm still not convinced that we're doing it. I'm pretty much sure that nuclear magnetic resonance that we were applying to Lithuania experiment was happening in ferrite, and ferrite was changing the properties, and that's why we were having a problem to tune to the ever-changing frequencies. Do you agree with that?
In Lithuanian experiment, we actually had post-reaction effect, which was magnetic field and radiation. Akula is trying to make only electrons, because each nuclear reaction starts with electrons, and there is all the particles fall out, so there is neutrons and protons and go on.
Yeah, but you got to understand that the nuclear bonding in copper was quite different than something that is iron based, which we then say the ferrite is the one. And I have a problem with really explaining it this way. And also, we need to have a 90 degrees between the two coils.
That's correct. This is must.
Right. Now, when he is explaining on his video the square wave signal, and on the top of the square wave signal left hand side, he can see a decaying, a very tiny wobbling on it, and he says, oh look, this is what caused the magnetic resonance, nuclear magnetic resonance in copper.
That's not true.
That's correct. Well, I have a problem with that. You know, I'm not trying to see. For me, he doesn't know how it works. He knows that it works. He knows that he's got the effect, but he's trying to put the theory on it, but he doesn't know the theory. He's trying to explain something that doesn't make a sense for me.
The thing is, this is quite complex process to understand and actually to realize the potential of it. So for Akula, I see he understood NMR, but the thing what he is doing is not completely understandable.
Well, what I believe is that what he is explaining is completely misleading. For me, Akula is trying to not really tell us the secrets of the device, but he is trying to make us believe or gather more audience, and based on that audience, he's thinking or hoping about one who's going to give him the money. That's what he's thinking. There's nothing wrong about it, but this is not my cup of tea. This is not what I want. This is not what I live about. This is not what I try to share. And this is also not that.
Is it NMR? It must be open source. In any case, you will replicate or do it. No patents.
Right. Okay, so it's a 19 minutes right now of that. What I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to implement it in that video. At least maybe that part of it, although everything is interesting. I have already 20 something minutes of the video, but I suggest right now to stop that, and then I see how much I can fit in the video so it's not too long. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.